Hello and welcome to Illinois OSHA 101 for fire departments. This is lesson 2 on inspections. Let's get started. If you remember from lesson 1, there are a variety of ways you may encounter an inspector with Illinois OSHA. Today we're going to cover the inspection process, but just remember the complaint process, referrals, an imminent danger type of situation, or a fatality catastrophe could result in an inspection. So let's talk a little bit about the scope of the inspection. You may have a comprehensive inspection. That's basically wall to wall, a complete review of the facility and the workplace. You could also have a partial scope inspection, and that would be more on the lines of a complaint or a specific type of situation. Our inspections are no notice. We are legally forbidden to provide advance notice. There is a small exception for unstaffed fire stations, most likely a volunteer fire department. Because they are unstaffed, we do occasionally give a little bit of a heads up, but just know it is going to be less than 24 hours. By the time we call you, we may already be on the way, and we'd like to have someone there so we can complete the inspection. Can you refuse entry to an Illinois OSHA inspector? And the answer is yes. However, we can also get a warrant and come back shortly thereafter, and you would have to allow us onto the premises. Once we get there, we will start an opening conference. The inspector will present their credentials, and they're also going to invite employee representatives to attend the opening conference. At the conference, the inspector will explain the rights for the employer and the employee, and they'll start to gather basic information. After the opening conference, the inspector is going to start a records review. One of the first things they're going to ask for is the past 3 years of your OSHA 300 logs. And if you're not familiar with what those are, we will cover those in a later section. We're also going to ask for your SOPs, SOGs, your respiratory protection plan, your bloodborne pathogen plan. We're going to look at training records. We may want to look at your annual training program, specific content, or perhaps individual member training records. He may look at a roster of your firefighters and say, I'd like to see the training records for firefighter A, B, and C. Or he may just pick a random sample and take a look at a variety of records that you have on file. And just remember, if it's not in writing, it really doesn't exist to us. A verbal confirmation that you did something is not going to hold a lot of weight. We're going to need to see something in writing that shows what you did. The inspector may also ask for inspection records. The fire brigade standard and the respiratory protection standard require inspections on a variety of fire service equipment, such as SCBA, personal protective equipment, turnout gear, apparatus, and equipment. They may also ask for additional records based on an observation during the inspection. Once an inspector requests records, you will be given a limited amount of time to produce them before we would consider them non-existent. Now, an inspector will work with you. He doesn't expect you to have them immediately available within 5 minutes to produce something, but he's not going to give you 2 weeks either. We want to give you a reasonable amount of time, but we don't want to give you enough time to perhaps develop something in the interim that didn't exist prior to the inspection. Next, we're going to go to the walk-around portion of the inspection. Our inspectors are going to be looking for a safe environment for your firefighters. We want to make sure it's a clean and sanitary firehouse. We're going to be looking for exposed wiring or missing outlet covers for an electrocution hazard. We want to make sure there's nothing on the floor that a firefighter could trip over, like a extension cord. We want to make sure the exits and exit paths are clear. We're going to look for chemicals. If they're in a bottle, we want that bottle to be labeled. If firefighter A puts a chemical in an unlabeled bottle and then 3 shifts later firefighter B picks it up, he does not know what that is. That's a violation of the hazard communication standard. We want to make sure floors are dry. After you wash the fire truck, mop up the floor. In the winter with snow and ice that melts, we want to make sure that we keep the floors dry so when a firefighter turns out for that next call, he doesn't slip in a puddle of water. Want to look for properly stored flammable liquids and the firefighter tool room, a treasure trove of potential violations. We want to make sure your grinders, your drill presses are properly guarded, and the equipment in that tool room is in a safe condition. Next, we're going to take a look at the fire apparatus. We want to make sure they're functional and safe. Any safety mechanisms, we want to make sure they're operational. The seat belts are in good condition. Any of the man-saver bars that may be on a fire truck are working and are there to begin with. Want to take a look at the tires, make sure they're in good condition. Has your fire truck been modified? Have you attempted to override or disable a safety device? We're going to take a look at all that. Some inspectors may ask you to actually start up the fire truck and pull it out, turn on all the lights, turn on the emergency warning devices to make sure everything is in functional condition. The inspector is also going to want to look at your in-service equipment. Everything from SCBA to vests, ladders, bunker gear. They may pay particular attention to your SCBA. We want to make sure it's functional and ready to go immediately into service. An inspector may also ask a firefighter that's present to don his bunker gear and his SCBA and demonstrate that he knows how to do that. Demonstrate that he knows emergency procedures with that SCBA. So if in the event that he does encounter an emergency situation, he knows how to address it. Our inspectors interacting with rank and file firefighters is a big part of the inspection process. Inspectors have the right to privately interview any employee. They could ask them a variety of questions. Something simple, do you feel safe when you work here? To something more complex, describe your Mayday procedure. Describe your emergency evacuation procedure for the fire ground. They may talk about their roles and responsibilities and ask them what they do on a daily basis. What level are they trained at? Are they a hazmat technician? Are they hazmat awareness? What training have they had so they can safely and effectively perform at that level? When's the last time they wore an SCBA? Are they comfortable wearing an SCBA? Are they familiar with the operation, the emergency procedures of that piece of equipment? And anything else that may come up during the process. This is the opportunity for the inspector and the employee to sit down privately and talk about the safety of the workplace. Now that we've reached the closing conference, we can talk about what has happened during the inspection. This is when the employer representative, and the inspector sit down, and they're going to review what the inspector saw during the inspection. Those apparent violations that the inspector found. This is a great time for the employer to write down those apparent violations. And it is important to note these don't automatically translate into citations. At this point, it's just an initial assessment by the inspector, noticing that there's a potential safety issue there. And this is the time for the employer to ask questions. The employee can ask questions. And the inspector will go over a checklist of items and ensure that before he leaves, the employer and the employee understand where we're at in the process and where we're going to go from here. Okay, before we move on, here's a quick tip. If an inspector points out something during the inspection and you can immediately fix it, they may count that as something that is corrected during inspection. That shows a great good faith effort on your part, and the inspector will appreciate your dedication to safety. After they leave, over the next few days, they may contact you for some additional information or to follow up on something. Once they've completed their file, they're going to forward that file with their proposed citations to their enforcement manager. During this time, the inspector will call you, in most cases, and provide you a heads up about the proposed citations that you're about to receive. In some cases, you may not receive any citations. After approval, a packet will be sent to the highest ranking elected or appointed official via certified mail. For fire districts, this will be the board president. For cities and villages, this will be the mayor or the village president. Okay, so once you're aware that you've received a packet, you're going to want to open that up quickly. There are deadlines and timelines in that packet that are time sensitive, and you need to be aware of those. Inside the packet, you're going to find one of the following. Hopefully, you find a no violation letter. That means during our inspection, we didn't find anything that we could cite you for under the Illinois Occupational Safety and Health Act. Great job. Keep up the good work. We may also issue a hazard alert letter. This identifies one or more potential hazardous situations. Maybe they didn't meet the definition or the qualification to be issued as a citation, but nonetheless, we're concerned about them. We have some recommendations for you, and we're also putting you on notice. While this time it may not have been a citable occurrence, in the future, if we come back for something along these same lines, whether it's a complaint or a potential injury, you may be cited based on that hazard alert letter from the previous inspection. So essentially we're saying you're on notice, but we can't give you a citation at this point. You may receive citations, and those are classified according to severity. You could have an other than serious citation. The next level would be a serious citation. If you repeat something, if we've been on one inspection and issued a citation and we come back later and find it has reoccurred, we could issue you a repeat citation. That does come with a monetary penalty. If you've done something intentionally or with plain indifference, we would issue a willful citation. That comes with a monetary penalty. And in extreme situations where a fatality is involved, we do have the ability to refer a situation and a citation for a criminal willful citation. And you may receive a combination of a HAL, hazard alert letter, and citations. So that's what you'd find inside your packet. Now the clock is ticking. As an employer, you do have some options. You have 15 working days to contest citations. After that, the citations are considered final and cannot be appealed. Within those 15 days, you could request an informal conference that would be held between you and the enforcement manager for your inspection, and you could talk about certain situations and maybe come to an agreement based on citations and timelines for abatement. You could formally contest and say, I would like to take this to court in front of an administrative law judge. You can also accept the citations and start working on abatement or fixing the problem. And just remember, as I stated previously, you don't have to wait to fix things. You don't have to wait to receive that official packet to make your workplace safer. With the exception of a criminal willful citation, all citations are civil and not criminal in nature. As far as monetary penalties, as we are charged with inspecting public sector government, almost all of our citations do not incur a monetary penalty. We want you to take the money that you would have had to pay in penalties and invest that into your health and safety program for your employees. There are some certain monetary penalties, as I mentioned previously. If you essentially have a repeat offense, a repeat citation, that can be a monetary penalty. If you do something intentionally or with plain indifference, that can gain a monetary penalty. If you fail to fix something, if we've said you need to fix this and you refuse to fix it, that could be a failure to abate situation and result in a per day, per violation penalty. If you foresee a potential financial hardship with correcting something, please communicate that to your inspector and he can address those concerns with you and potentially address those with his manager. Okay, now we would enter the abatement process. And again, abatement simply means fixing it. In my previous tip, I said if you did something immediately before the inspector left, they could count it as corrected during inspection. That would show up on your inspection report packet, and you don't have to do anything. You already fixed the problem. There's no further documentation required. Once we've issued you the citation packet, you'll see an abatement date for each citation. And generally, you'll get about 30 days to abate that citation and abate that violation unless you protest. In some cases, it could be less. In other cases, it could be more. It really is specific to the actual situation and how long we anticipate it would take you to correct that violative condition. If you do need more time, please contact your inspector. Please contact them prior to your abatement date. We don't want to have something go past due and have to work on other actions. If you can be proactive and say, hey, I need some more time, in most cases, your inspector will present you with an extension request you can fill out that will be considered, and we can, in most cases, with reasonable exceptions, provide you an extension. We're going to work with you. As long as you are showing a good faith effort and moving forward, we are going to work with you in the best interests of employee safety. Something else, we cannot tell you specifically how to fix something. If you need some feedback or some advice, we may be able to provide you with examples of what has worked successfully for others in the past on other inspections, but we can't specifically tell you how to fix it. It is ultimately up to you as the employer to fix it and abate it. Okay, thank you for sticking with us through Lesson 2 on inspections. Hopefully you have a much better understanding of the Illinois OSHA inspection process, what it entails, and how we work. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us by email, by calling us, or visit our website, osha.illinois.gov. Thank you, and stay safe.